Isombard Kingdom Brunel. He's not just famous because he had such a cool name.
He was also an amazing engineer. He designed and built enormous ships, massive bridges, and the longest railway that anyone had ever seen.
With trains running so smoothly that you could balance a pea at the end of your nose, well, if you wanted to. Kingdom Brunel was born in Portsea near Portsmouth in 1806. The name Isombard comes from medieval German, Isam meaning metal and bard meaning glittering.
I love that.
Yeah, it seems quite appropriate when you think of the man that he became.
His dad, the famous engineer Sir Mark Brunel, was very keen that his son follow in his footsteps. He got him some training at an early age, and soon Isombard showed signs of being a bit of a genius.
Yeah, when he was a child, he predicted the collapse of a building opposite his school, and then a few days later the building did collapse.
You see? A genius.
Brunel was known for his very distinctive outfit, but what was it? The chimney pot hat. Very much how I imagined it. Nice and airy though.
Yeah.
I never really understood what waistcoats are for.
I know, they're a bit pointless because they don't keep you warm.
They're just rubbish, aren't they?
Yeah, just rubbish.
What does it do? Just
look snazzy.
Is it?
Yeah. And here's the right way round.
Put on your jump.
Thank you very much, kind sir.
This outfit would have been a centering. Also sort of an air of authority.
Yeah, you'd think the hat would be quite cumbersome, but actually, it's kind of not. Look, however much I wear my head, it doesn't fall off.
That's amazing.
I know.
The period between the early 1800s and the mid-1800s, when Brunel was around, has become known as the Industrial Revolution. Steam power transformed Britain's cities. Suddenly there were all these snazzy mechanical inventions, new ways of harnessing energy. Everything was changing in the way things were made and people worked.
The main thing about the Industrial Revolution was that for the first time in history, machines started to take over the work that had always been done by people. Huge factories were built all over the country, and with the invention of steam engines, it meant that they didn't need to be near water power anymore. The result was that cities grew and their populations boomed as people moved there for work.
But there were downsides to all this progress. Overcrowding, pollution, even sewage in the streets. The countryside also suffered from all the new roads and railways being built.
But even worse, the poor, ill and very young children were forced to live and work in awful conditions.
One other thing to come out of the Industrial Revolution was steam trains. This one right here is one of the first in the world. It was so fast.
Well, 29 miles per hour.
Well, fast for the time, that people nicknamed it the Rocket. Built by one of Brunel's best mates, Robert Stephenson, it was to inspire Brunel a lot.
In 1831, Brunel made his first journey by steam train. It was on this journey that he came up with a couple of sneaky ideas for improvements.
I record this specimen of the shaking on the Manchester Railway. The time is not far off when we shall be able to take our coffee and write whilst going noiselessly and smoothly at 45 miles per hour. Let me try.
Excuse me, would you mind awfully telling me what you're doing?
Not at all. I have just had an idea for a new railway.
Really? How splendid. Where would it run to?
London to Bristol. It will be the longest railway in Britain. 118 miles to be precise.
Oh, do tell more.
Well, have you noticed how bumpy this train ride is?
Yes, I have.
This is because of the width of the gauges.
I beg your pardon.
The width of the rails? Currently, they are at 4 foot 8 inches wide. I intend to make them 7 foot wide.
So,
my carriages will be wider and therefore more stable at high speeds. Wider carriages means more passengers, and more passengers means more money.
Splendid. But if your tracks are wider than all the other tracks in Britain, then how is that going to work?
I beg your pardon, madam, but that's my problem.
So, what will it be called then?
The Great Western Railway. Or God's Wonderful Railway, perchance.
So what we're saying is, when the tracks were closer together like this, it was easier for the train to tip over. But If the tracks were wider apart, like this, it wouldn't tip over. See?
Brunel eventually got permission to build his railway between Bristol and London, but it was greeted with a lot of disapproval.
I disapprove. I disapprove.
Rich people didn't want a railway running past their house.
I don't want a dirty, noisy railway at the bottom of my garden.
The Duke of Wellington went as far as to say,
It will only encourage the lower classes to move about.
some people though were genuinely worried about the damage to the environment, the same way people today sometimes oppose airports or motorways. But Brunel did build his Great Western Railway,
And we wanted to find out what it felt like to be a steam train driver at that time.
so we've come to Buckinghamshire Railway Centre to find out.
First thing we need to do is get the fire lit.
Brilliant.
We need to break up some wood for that, so you up for that? You can
Yeah,
help us?
absolutely. Okay, lead the way. I think that bits of wood, not crates.
No, we've got to break them up first.
Okay.
Got this in. Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Last but not least, most importantly, the axe.
Wow, that is a big axe.
Break them up and then put them straight into the cab so we can put them in the firebox ready to light the fire.
Shall we do the rest of it then?
Yep, there you go.
Go on, Fran. You're really angry. Oh, come on, give it to me.
If you can break it and I can't, I'll be so annoyed.
Ah! Can I do some more? Come on!
That'll do you. I think we've probably loosened enough.
Yeah. I thought steam trains ran on coal, so why are we breaking up the wood?
We need to start the fire on wood because you'd never be able to light coal on its own without actually trying to get the fire hot to start with. If you just lift it up, I'll pass it up onto the footplate.
Brilliant.
Okay, next stage.
Let's go up into the cab then.
Okay.
I've always wanted to get into one of these.
Oh, there's lots of bits of machinery. I'm
Lots of
already
levers.
confused.
Yeah, lots of levers and cogs and things.
The fireman lights the fire and is responsible for creating the steam that the driver will use. The driver actually makes the engine move and looks out for any signals as we go along our journey.
So the fireman lights the fire. Okay.
Now the most important thing from the fireman's point of view is how much water we've got in the boiler. Okay. And then like your kettle at home, you wouldn't try and make a cup of tea without any water in the kettle.
No.
Okay. And that's registered on that gauge there. So when I'm happy with that, the next thing we can do is all the wood that you chopped up earlier now needs to go in the firebox. If I put my torch on and you look inside the firebox there,
Wow.
and I'll put a layer of coal on the fire grate. So if you can start putting that in for me, please.
So we need to throw it in as far as we can.
Yep.
Why are we lighting this piece of rag? Can't we just throw a match in and it will all catch fire?
The rag burns quite slowly. And hopefully, whilst that's burning, the wood will catch, and then the rest of the fire will be lit.
Wow, it's really crackling now, really
Okay.
smoky.
Yeah, that's ready to go in now.
Okay.
What we need to do is make sure it goes on top of the wood.
It's nice and warm.
Yeah, it is nice and warm.
Okay, so it's going to take probably around about 3 hours.
3 hours to get ready?
Yeah.
So it will take 3 hours to be hot enough for the whole locomotive to move, to take any passengers anywhere?
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing. Rick, you've been waiting for ages. I want to do something fun. What do you do?
Well, what I normally do when I want to sort of pass a bit of time, I have a bit of breakfast on my shovel.
Oh, that sounds quite nice. Or does it? It's a bit disgusting though, that
Well,
shovel.
It might look dirty at the moment, but by the time I've cleaned it, it'll be clean enough to eat off of.
Whoa! My face is steaming now. Fran, that is actually quite clean.
Is it?
Yeah. Come on. Bring on the bacon and eggs.
In the days of Brunel, do you think they did this every morning?
They may well have had time to do this, and this is what they would have done. They would have cooked their food on the shovel.
They deserve a bit of breakfast, I think.
Especially when it tastes as good as this.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yum.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Very hot. Careful.
Ways that even on his 3-day honeymoon, he managed to squeeze in a visit to the Liverpool to Manchester Railway. Pretty romantic, huh?
I don't know, that sounds brilliant to me.
Earlier we learned how to get a steam train ready.
Now we're going to learn how to drive it.
So what we've got on the engine is we've got a brake, and we've got a way of making the engine move,
Okay.
and we've also got a way of making the engine move a direction.
Okay.
Okay.
So backwards or
Forwards. Okay, so to take the brakes off, what we do is we move the lever towards us. Okay, and that helps to take the brakes off on the whole of the train. And then the other way, we're on.
Okay.
Okay, happy with that?
Yeah?
So, quite
Excellent.
important to know that bit, but
This one is probably the most important lever on the engine.
Put the brakes on is left.
Yes.
Yeah.
This big red lever here, we call this a regulator handle. Okay, and it's to regulate the amount of steam that is in the boiler that the fireman's made for us. We're going to use that steam to actually make the cylinders go backwards and forwards, which in turn will make the wheels go round. And the more we open this, the more steam goes in, the faster we go. Okay.
How fast can we go?
I would say possibly an hour maximum.
But still 50 miles better than like a horse and cart,
In
you know.
1930, 50 mile an hour was very, very fast.
Yeah.
Extremely fast.
Yeah, okay.
You put your hand underneath the whistle here.
Yeah.
Do it. Under the whistle.
Okay.
Do that bit!
And we're ready to go.
Everyone ready for the whistle?
Lift it very gently. Okay?
We're moving! Ah, we're moving! That's the coolest thing!
Driving a steam engine!
That is the coolest thing!
Our pressure's only on 160. Are we in trouble?
And make sure there's nobody on the track.
On the, no one on the line.
Oh, wow! I'm dropping loads of coal in the
I've got a brake
thing.
rock. That's fine.
We're getting quite fast.
Yeah.
It feels like we're getting quite fast.
Okay, we need to do is put the brake on.
Oh yeah, and we're slowing down.
A bit more.
Look at the fire, look at my fire.
Oh my goodness. Have you seen how much steam and smoke and everything there is coming out? That was so brilliant. It makes the most brilliant noise, like really loud and really hot and really
Quite scary but amazing.
But you've got this massive machine under your control just by these tiny, well, big levers, but you only have to move them a tiny bit.
Well, I did a lot of the work so she could control the train.
Yeah.
So it was all about teamwork and that's great. Although driving a steam train is fun, steering a massive ship on the high seas is much more fun. So when Brunel got bored of trains, his attention turned to ships.
Yeah, stop it now.
Oh, okay.
International travel had become the new cool thing, so more and more people were heading off abroad, weren't they, in search of new lives. Brunel soon spotted that there was a whole lot of money to be made from this by shipbuilding. Brunel designed some pretty fabulous ships in his time. The Great Eastern, the Great Western, and this one, the Great Britain.
These were enormous, designed to carry vast amounts of people to America and Australia. It's estimated that between 1815 and 1914, around 23 million emigrants left Britain.
The passenger lists are always funny to read. For example, in 1856, a ship called the Saldanha set sail from Liverpool to Victoria in Australia. Its passenger records detailed some miners from Durham, an 18-year-old fruiterer, a Scottish gold digger, many farmers, butchers and labourers, quite a few orphan children, a shepherd and a foreign sugar boiler.
What's a sugar boiler?
Someone who boils sugar? Oh, I'm bored of railways.
Yeah.
Have you noticed how emigration to Australia is on the increase, yet no one has yet built a ship that can sail all the way there without having to stop to refuel?
That would have to be a pretty big ship.
Indeed, the biggest ship ever built. But I have worked out that it is possible to build such a ship that carries 4,000 people, as well as 12,000 tons of coal, all the way to Australia.
Yes, but it's impossible to build a single engine for such a ship.
So we don't just use a single engine.
Whatever you're suggesting sounds very expensive.
Oh, John, between us we know a great many rich men.
Okay, so how do you suggest launching such a ship?
We launch it sideways, using what's known as a controlled launch. We build a ramp.
Yes, I do know what a controlled launch is, Isombard. It's just it's never been done before.
Oh, let's not worry about that now. Look, your responsibility as shipbuilder would just be to design and construct the ship. I, as engineer, will oversee it and make sure it's a success. So what do you say?
All right then, let's make your great ship. Brunel did get to make his great ship, the Great Eastern, in 1858. It was the biggest boat ever built at that time.
Yeah, it was the size of 2 football pitches. That meant it was twice as long, as well as 7 times as heavy as any ship that had gone before.
That is big.
In the beginning, though, the ship seemed to be jinxed. People said it was haunted by 2 engineers who had got stuck between the twin hulls while it was being built.
Then, at its public launch, it got stuck, and it took a further 9 months to get it on the water. When it was finally launched, one of the chains holding it up snapped, killing someone in front of hundreds of people.
Because of all this, the Great Eastern never became the passenger ship that Brunel had hoped. But it did remain the biggest ship in the world for nearly 40 years.
It was also used to lay the first ever telecommunications cable between America and Britain. How long was that?
3,000 miles, actually. And this is a bit of it.
Why are you wearing like white gloves?
Because it's old. Look, it even smells old.
It does smell old. Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Now, what we want to know is what kept Brunel so motivated. Was he a genius? Was he a workaholic? Was he a show-off?
Probably a bit of combination of all three. This was at the height of the Industrial Revolution. The possibilities for doing this kind of thing was immense. His plans were of such vast ambition that people might not believe he could do it. So he had to have that kind of self-belief in order to convince other people that it was possible.
To give him money and as well.
To give him money, but also to get people to take him seriously and see that this kind of new world was possible.
Was it also because he was quite competitive? Because there were other engineers around at the time, weren't there?
Yes, his great friend Stevenson
was
making great developments in the railways. So yes, he was one step ahead of the competition.
Now, why did he wear such a massive hat?
Because it was the height of fashion.
But his was bigger than other people's.
He was a bigger personality than everyone else.
That was
Cool.
it.
Thanks, then.
Now
See ya.
we'll leave you to your books. Bye.
Most of Brunel's projects were super successful. They include Paddington Station
And the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol! The building of the bridge started in 1836. It spanned an incredible 214 metres across the Avon Gorge and was built a scary 76 metres above the river below.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing feat of engineering. Even today, in the 21st century, it carries over 11,000 vehicles across it every day. Okay, Mike, what we want to know is, how does a bridge actually work?
Well, it is a suspension bridge,
But what does suspension actually mean?
what it means is it hangs. So the chains that you can see, they're buried down in the earth at each end, about 20 metres.
Okay.
They come up over these 2 towers, or we call them piers, all the way across, and then these rods hang from it, and then the bridge is attached to the rods from just where we are now.
I can actually feel the bridge moving.
Well, it's supposed to move, but it's perfectly safe. Let me show you what's underneath.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Right, where's this?
Well, we're now underneath the bridge on a cradle for maintenance that hangs underneath the bridge.
Right.
Great.
The bridge was opened in 1864, and as early as 1897 they noticed that the bridge deck was rotting, and they wondered why. But of course, what kind of traffic was using the bridge in 1897?
Horses, carriages.
That's right. And all you got to do is think of what horses leave behind wherever they go.
Manure.
And that was what was rotting away at the bridge.
But apart from that, the bridge is in the same condition as it was when it was first
That's
built.
right. That's what's remarkable about the bridge, is it's substantially the same bridge that it was when it opened in 1864 in the days of the horse and cart. Well, if you have a look at the top of the chains, go right at the top, above the towers, or we call them piers, right at the top. Now, Brunel's design was to have sphinxes on top.
Why sphinxes?
Hang on, I think I know this. Is it because at the time there was a lot of archaeology? Because wasn't that the time when they were excavating all the pyramids?
That's right.
And it was cool and trendy.
And Egyptomania was all the rage.
Egyptomania.
So Brunel decided that he would have sphinxes, and the idea was that they would guard the bridge.
Ah.
So he had 2 sphinxes on top, at least in his plans. The sphinxes were too expensive, they had no engineering function, and they decided they couldn't afford them, so they didn't bother with them. And that's why the top of the bridge is now bare. But if you have a look at the shape of the tower or the pier, you can actually almost imagine an Egyptian hieroglyph, or like the Egyptian lettering of the time.
Yeah, you can.
That's amazing.
Yes. Right, what I want to show you now is one of the nuts that goes on the end of the bolt. The bolts go through the links, they join the 2 links together, and this is what's on the end, and it sort of screws on.
What do you use to tighten them up?
Yeah.
A massive spanner.
No, is that true?
Yes.
Like a spanner like this
Well, that's how they've got to. What else do you think they're going to do with it?
How big is the spanner then?
Well, why did it have to go there?
So how much does the whole bridge weigh?
About 1,500 tons.
That's a lot.
That's right.
The bridge was finally completed in 1864, but Brunel never saw this happen. He died a few years earlier.
In a funny kind of way, it was his work that actually killed him, because he developed Bright's disease, a kidney problem that you get from spending too much time in the cold and damp. But we're grateful to you, Mr. Glittering Metal, for your wonderful ships, trains and bridges.
Yeah, it's only because of you that we're able to drink a cup of coffee on the train and not spill it all the way down our fronts.
Well, I can't.
Okay, Brunel, go.
It's about Brunel, mate. Glittery gold. You wore a chimney pot hat and sprinkles and cigars. He took his friend's train ideas and made them better, like the wider tracks that didn't really work because the other ones weren't that wide. Then he made some ships. They didn't work either, but he made some amazing things like that bridge and also...
He's a bit of a genius, wasn't
Takes on Kurt Angle. Then Friday the 18th of November, the Raw Superstars roll into the Birmingham NEC.
Out of the 75 MPs, 30